New.
It was
We're gonna do another tier list. You guys ready for the Zelda 3D game tier list, boys?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's hop in.
We got Ganondorf waiting right here. We got him waiting.
I think I hit. Oh, yep. Let me fix that. There we go. There we go. I almost started streaming and not recording.
I mean, it's not the first time that we've done one of these live on stream.
All right, first game, guys. We're gonna start off with the first 3D Zelda game. We're gonna start off with Ocarina of Time.
S tier.
Ocarina.
Who wants to go first? Who wants to go first?
We already know how I feel. It was in my favorite games of all time because it's an S tier. It's the bomb. I've gone over the details of why this is such an amazing game, so I'll give everybody else their time to shine. But just to reiterate from a couple weeks ago, again, the side quests, the actual story, the linear ability to have a beginning and an end and feel like you've done your job and you don't have to be clinking around looking for dog shits all the time. It's just an amazing game. It's got all of these amazing puzzles that really gave birth to Zelda that we know now. And overall, you have an amazing story arc that I feel like it just was the leading ground for Zelda going into the future. It's the best. It's S tier. That's it. Short and sweet.
I think I agree with Mate on this. I think this is an S tier game. I think it was the first 3D Zelda game, and it took everybody by storm. Like it was the best game at the time, and we're talking about the game as it is now, which I'm sure if you go back and play it now, it probably doesn't hold up as well as it did back in the day, but I have very fond memories of playing this game as a child. This game was amazing. Probably one of my favorite games growing up. It's S tier.
It's going to be an S tier. I actually just got done beating the 3DS version again about a month ago. I'll play that game until the day I die, probably. I remember when it came out, I got the cool box with the gold cartridge. I was so gosh dang hyped. And then what gives it S tier is it's one of my favorite storylines in a Zelda. I just love the Temple of Time and the sages and going from adult to kid. It's and the sneaking around. Everything about the game is just ridiculous. It's S tier.
All right, what do you guys think?
I'm with you guys. It's S tier. Honestly, it set the bar for every single 3D Zelda. It's if you can't hit that bar, if you're not getting at least that quality of gameplay and feel, you have dropped the ball. And that's just how it goes for me. And like Toon had said, every aspect of that game was super fun and pulled you in, and it just, I mean, it hadn't been seen before.
It was
Really.
the first of its time.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta agree with S tier on this one. Basically, you all just put out all the points anyway, so I don't really have to say much. But like for playing it from,
we're gonna let you go first next time.
But virtually every console, like I said, the storyline just kind of like keeps you into it. All the side quests are up there as well. I feel that S tier. It definitely set the stage for what the future of the Zelda franchise was to come.
Yeah, so I think it's easy to say we just all put this in S tier. I don't think there's any question about it. Ocarina of Time
whatsoever.
I've never met
S-tier.
one other Zelda fan that has ever said different. Not one.
It's one of the best Zelda games ever made. All right, now we're gonna move on to probably the second best Zelda game ever made from this time era, Majora's Mask.
Let Cole go first.
Cole's going first.
Yeah, Cole's going first.
What do you think of Majora's Mask?
This one had more of an interesting concept. I could say S and an A around there.
Fair.
Only because of the fact that everyone gets annoyed by the 72-hour concept.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, now we'll put that concept aside. You got the storyline, which keeps you all in because you do have to go and you got to free all these giants. And the whole part about being in another land, being in Termina, it's not like the first time that it's happened because I mean you got Link's Awakening. That's off of its own little island.
Yeah.
But
It's not the first time we've time traveled either.
no, it's
Yeah,
not.
it isn't.
Right.
Ooh, a lot
'Cause, I
of
mean,
that.
he always had the link to the past in Ocarina of Time, obviously. But I feel that the 72-hour thing was a downgrade. I know a lot of people talk about Great Bay Temple, of how much of a bitch that temple is.
It is. Fuck that temple.
Yeah. Everyone complains about the water temple in Ocarina of Time. Let's just go to Great Bay. But I feel like overall, yeah, it's a great storyline. The side quests are awesome. The fact that, yeah, the Song of Time itself, you can play it in 3 different ways to either speed up, slow down, or save your game, and revert back to the original 72 hours.
Yeah.
And yeah, like everything just keeps you into the game itself. So I feel like S tier is up there and as low as A for me.
All right. So if you had to give it a hard A or yes or S, what one would it be?
I would say closer to A.
An
For
A?
me.
Okay. All right. A for
Our man Cole.
A for Cole. What do you got for us, Grease?
As a person who was put off by the 72-hour in-game time limit,
That's my problem with the game as well, so you're not alone.
I can't. I mean, that's one of the things that I felt like was a drawback. And I'm gonna get flagged for this, but the premise of the game, it felt almost more like, I mean, obviously they didn't have DLC at the time, but really, Majora's Mask, looking back at it now, it feels like Majora's Mask was just a DLC to Ocarina of Time.
Fair.
So, in overall, I'm going to be putting this in a tier. It's
All right.
not, they didn't drop the ball completely, but there are some drawbacks where it's just it didn't hit for me.
I agree with you. I'm also putting it in A tier. I feel like it is what you just said. It probably, like, back then we didn't have DLC, but like that's what it feels like. It feels like they were just trying to capitalize on what they did with Ocarina of Time, and they didn't do as good of a job. But it was a good game.
It was a good game.
It was a really good game. You know, the 72-hour thing, don't like it. But as far as like game like the concept of the game, it being a Zelda game and the dungeons and all the puzzles, it still hit all those marks. So I definitely still give it an A as well.
All right. The only reason this game is getting a B is because of the dungeons. Oh, I do not like this game. This is one of the few Zelda games I've only beat once in my life, and that was back when I was a kid. I do not like the 72-hour thing. It's a straight abomination. I don't like the mask, really. I think they're stupid. I mean, I literally, literally when I played Ocarina of Time, and then I went down to this, I was the most disappointed teenager in my life. I was like, this is the most downgraded pile of trash compared to Ocarina of Time I've ever played in my life.
That's why I gave it an A, because
the dungeons are still
feels
good.
like an Ocarina of Time fucking, you know.
The dungeons are still good. It gets a B just for the freaking dungeons alone. If it didn't have good dungeons in it, it would be down there with another game where we'll mention here soon.
All right, so we got 3 A's and a B. What do you think, mate?
Man,
It's
you
upset.
guys, you're forgetting about the aspects of this game that you did enjoy. I'm actually like, this is up there for me. Like, it's getting an S. I know you guys don't agree, but let me remind you of what you're not talking about. First off, yes, it had the 72-hour complex, but you could reverse and forward time. Once you learn the songs, it wasn't like it was a big deal. It may have been harder for you, like, not saying you guys specifically, but for people that are in their youth and couldn't get to the point after playing hide and seek, again, like, getting through that section of the game was harder than getting your feet wet in Ocarina, where you're kind of hand guided to get through the forests. But once you got past that part and you were like, oh, okay, well, I can just, mess around with the time. It's not that big a deal. You had so many options available to you. Like changing into a Goron, changing into the Deku Shrub, changing into a Zora, getting instruments for each party, having all the masks that gave you different abilities, the ability to go through the game and get the secret link. You know what I mean? You got to be so much more. And that sword, you can't tell me that sword isn't the best sword in any Zelda that's come out. That dual DNA sword is fire. It's amazing. And yeah, the story wasn't Ocarina, but you know what? You were going through and you had this like really weird Majora's Mask, what did they name him? I can't remember. It's been a couple years here. Yes.
This is how we know Mate's a little bit younger than me, Tunes, and Grease.
You can't tell me when you're going through and you're trying to find it all that it was not amazing.
It's safe to say, guys.
I enjoyed the game. I still gave it an A. I'm not going to give it an S.
There's no way I can give it an A.
I enjoyed the game. Right? It's a really good points out of that one that your main Rec. But it's like I said, for me, it's just like the Tuneable said, the dungeons is one thing, but it's mostly Great Bay Temple for the dungeons for me. One thing about me, I hate water levels in video games. That part.
No more water levels in video games, guys. We can't have it. It's absolutely
anxiety is too high.
Has any of y'all tried to go back and play the original Majora's Mask?
Yes.
I have.
I've beaten that game like 11 times.
So horrible.
So we're gonna put Majora's Mask to bed.
Yeah.
Mate gave it an S. 3 of us gave it an A. Tunes gave it a B. So I think it sits firmly at A.
It averages A. I'll give you that.
All right. Our next one on the list, Wind Waker.
I'll start with this one.
Go ahead.
Oh well, say at first it's a 1000% S tier because I've beat that game 14 times. Come on, man. It came out at first though. I ain't gonna lie. When it first came out, I was like, "What the hell is this?" I saw these shell-shaded graphics. I was like, "What in the weird hell is this going on?" But then once I started diving into the game, and you start off on that island, and you gotta freaking make your way up and get on the pirate ship. You're sailing the seas. You're finding treasure. It takes you back in time where you see the original Ocarina of Time, Princess Castle, whatever, Hyrule Castle. Yeah, and the whole storyline just intertwines from the past. I mean, just the dungeons alone in it, the puzzles in the dungeon. My favorite was with the Poe pitchers, where you had to shoot the arrows into the Poe pitchers and stuff. I mean, that game is one of my favorite games of all time. I mean, it was my favorite Zelda game of all time until Tears of the Kingdom tied it. So there's a tie there. It's S tier.
Yeah. All right. So I don't want everything to be S tier. Like
you picked the wrong title of games here, man.
What? It feels like everything's gonna be S tier here.
Well, it's Zelda.
All right, Cole, you can go next.
I feel like this one can go A as well.
A, that's fair.
Right. Okay, we'll start it off now. When the game was first announced, and everyone seen that it was more, say, the cartoonish style graphics. I know a lot of people were pissed off about that one. I actually like the fact that the graphics went that way, because that did set some of the tone for some of the future Zelda games.
It did. I mean, that's why we have Breath of the Wild, and that's why we have Tears of the Kingdom. Like that art style kind of transferred over, and they just, articulated it.
But the end, like the story itself, it does keep you into it. It does have one of the direct sequels to Ocarina of Time, because that and Majora's Mask were both direct sequels in a way. That's something I really want to discuss on that one, but like I said, now the storyline kept on going. Which was good. All the side quests in the game were actually fun, like along with the mini games, and but so there's not much that could throw me off from it. But I feel like that's more of an A than S, in my opinion.
I agree with you on this one. I think it's A at best. I think it's I think it's a great game. Don't get me wrong. I think the dungeons and the puzzles were fun. I actually think Wind Waker had some of the funnest dungeons out of any Zelda game I've ever played. A lot of good puzzles. But as far as like improving on the series or making it better or changing things up, I think the only thing that throws me off is the fact that you have to sail around. It's annoying as shit. A.
You gotta travel around in Tears of the Kingdom of Breath of the Wild. It's just on land instead of sea.
But you don't have to do it on a boat.
It's a lot more boring on sea than on land. At least on land, you can run into the random mobs.
Yeah, you run into random stuff you're just traveling across the great.
So you run into random islands, little barges out there with enemies on it. I mean,
I'm giving it that rating because I think it's a good game. I think it's an A. I just think other games have done it better. Which, when we get to some of these other ones, I will explain myself.
And I don't mean to tick you off. I don't. I know you love this one. I am going to give it an A as well, but I have some specific reasons why it shines and why it doesn't shine. The art style never really bothered me. Again,
I like the art style. I like the art style.
Up to the point, again, every Zelda has done something significantly different. With Zelda 1, we have, obviously it's 8-bit background, and then you go into Zelda 2 and you have a side-scroller. Then we go into Ocarina and Majora's, and obviously they kind of sit in the same boat, but again, the whole 3D background for it. And then we get to Wind Waker, and again, it's just another revitalized way of being able to play this game and pulling in another audience, I feel like, that may not have played that game otherwise. Again, if it was another Zelda that was like Ocarina or like Majora's Mask, you would have had the same audience, but having that cartoony look might have brought in a younger demographic that might not have played it otherwise at that time.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was saying. It didn't revolutionize Zelda as a franchise. It gave it a new look. That's all it did.
But within that, you go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
Within that, again, I do feel like there are certain things about the title that were harder for you to get pulled into, even though, again, this new graphic style would have been great for people that wanted to, be able to have the younger audience come into it and feel like it was, like a cartoon morning. You want to play something that you're attracted to. But the tutorial and the first island in that game were a bit of a slag at the very beginning.
Oh my god,
so it builds up very exponentially, but again, the first hour to 2 hours of it's very slaggy as in comparison to the other games. But in saying that, once you get past that initial island and you are sailing,
it's slow.
I disagree. Oh yeah. I actually disagree about the sailing portion though, because again, even though it wasn't the most fun thing to do for travel, it did allow you to go to these far out destinations, and there were so many of them available. It wasn't like everything was going to be mapped out it was. So you had the ability to find these things that you just don't know where it is. So you were always constantly trying to explore and find this new thing. You had no idea if there was going to be power-ups or a quest or something more. So it did offer a lot more longevity compared to the earlier titles in the game. The thing
it needed to offer, it needed the way you did it needed to be better.
if there was more like customization to the boat, or if there was more features around the sailing that gave it a bit more life, I feel like that aspect of it could have been a lot more fun for people. But in saying that, when you did reach your destination for your main quest lines, or going through the dungeons, or getting
you would
upgrades,
find something cool or something.
it made it worth it.
Yeah.
And the flying again, because it's essentially the first time you start doing like glides and stuff. That was really fun. That was like something that it wasn't in it, but they have once again, like almost all Zeldas that come before Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, decided that it was a good enough aspect of the game that they were going to keep dragging it into the later series. And you can tell that, like, again, Wind Waker has had a huge mark in the Zelda series as a whole because of it. So it still gets an A tier for me, but the slaggy intro and like some of the stuff that kind of makes it pitfall within the sailing, it brings it down from S tier.
I think my main thing is it just doesn't revolutionize the series in any way, not like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom did. And it was, not necessarily a game that people took in immediately and were happy with because of the graphical style.
Yeah.
So the fact that you didn't do anything different with it other than the sailing and, the gliding, you really didn't revolutionize the series.
You could pick up different weapons and use them.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. And I'll be honest, the dungeons and shit and the puzzles were really good in Wind Waker. They might be some of the best puzzles and dungeons in any Zelda game right now.
They definitely made you think when you went into the dungeons.
Yeah. What do you think, Grease? You're the only one that hasn't tuned in yet.
Well, so I'm giving it a solid A tier. I would put it higher in the A tier than Majora's Mask. That goes without saying. Now the show.
Well, this one got heated. Holy shit! This one got heated.
I'm not even going to say anything else.
The art style is something you would have to.
I'm done.
To get used to.
Dude's just out. He's just like, you guys suck. I fucking hate you.
You're going to give Majora's Mask an S tier and not Wind Waker. That's ridiculous.
Majora's Mask
was A tier.
It was A tier.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, Majora's Mask was A tier, and I'm putting Wind Waker above Majora's Mask.
All right, so it's going to be above Majora's Mask and A tier.
I'm putting above Majora's Mask and A tier.
All right. I think it's safe to say that we all put this in A tier.
Yeah. Now, one of the off-putting things for me is, wasn't Wind Waker the introduction of Tingle?
Yeah, that's what I was.
That was actually Majora's Mask.
Majora's Mask.
No, it was. Yeah, it was. It was.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
It was Majora. Yeah.
Because you had to pop the balloons.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't know. There was something about Tingle that just puts me off. Which, I mean, look at the guy. He looks like a pedophile reject Teletubby.
He probably is.
Super creepy.
We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on now.
I'm gonna dip my head out over here.
All right, guys. Wind Waker, A tier. We're gonna move on to Twilight Princess. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first on this one. I'm going to be putting Twilight Princess. It's up there for me. It really is. I enjoy the storyline of it. It was really cool. Not to mention, you had a completely change of play style when you turned into Wolf Link. And so you actually had a duality of going back and forth between wolf and human form. I feel like Twilight Princess was. I'm giving it. I would put it in S tier or very high A tier.
Okay. All right. So is it better than Majora's Mask and Wind Waker?
I would put Twilight Princess above both of those. I myself personally, I really enjoy the storyline of Twilight Princess. and dealing with the whole Twilight realm and Midna. The whole thing really I enjoyed. The art style, everything about it.
I'm gonna stay out of this one because I never actually played all the way through Twilight Princess, so I'm gonna let you guys decide. Cole, what do you think?
For me, it's an S1. It's my second favorite Zelda game of all time. I like the fact that the whole entire game itself has the dark element. Is like you got the part of darkness throughout the game because of the Twilight stuff. The side quests in it were definitely interesting, especially the bug side quest. Because actually having to go around Hyrule and get all them bugs, even though it was a pain in the ass, it was still fun to get all those upgrades on the wallet. For the most part, like the sliding in one part of the thing, in one part of the game, I believe it's when you're trying to get the mirror. That was actually fun because then you can make side quests out of that afterwards. The dungeons in it I actually enjoyed a lot as well. I found a lot of them interesting. The water temple, that one specifically, had a lot more puzzles for me than any other dungeon. The storyline itself could also keep you into it with you always thinking that Zant was your main antagonist, and then you find out later on that he's not. And basically, have like say Zant as like your second last boss, and him doing all the work in order for it all. I actually like to touch on that one too. The part that probably to turn me off on it is when you switch over to the Wii's controls, because you got to use the Wii remote and everything. And of course, that's still a bit of a pain in the ass on that one. The GameCube one I still find better personally. I actually own both.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that they made the differences because they actually switched the map over from the Wii version to the GameCube version. They're actually mirrored. And in the GameCube version, Link's left-handed. The Wii version, he's right-handed. And
Really?
I don't know
I
if
did
many
not
people
know
actually
that.
noticed that because right up until this game, Link was actually left-handed in all their Zelda games.
I
He
had
was.
I had no idea.
Yeah, the only reason why they made him right-handed in the Wii version was that most people were right-handed.
And it was the
You
Wii
have the-
controls.
It was the Wii controls,
Yep.
so they
That
basically
makes sense.
made Link right-handed at that point.
Is it crazy that I never realized that he was left-handed
Nah.
this whole time?
You're fine. You're fine.
Tunes is just judging the shit out of me right now.
No, I'm not.
I think
Look,
that's a pretty common
I'm giving-
mistake, though.
I'm giving the game an A, and it would be an S if Nintendo didn't decide to release it on the Wii. It gets an A tier just because it was released on the Wii.
All right, so if
And-
it's an A tier, do you put it above Wind Waker and
Oh, hell
Majora's
no.
Mask?
No, not above Wind Waker. Right below Wind. It's way above Majora's Mask,
All right,
but
okay,
below Wind Waker.
all right, fair.
And everything Cole said, he talked about it, and it would get an S tier. The GameCube version is an S tier. The Wii version is a D tier, so it equals out to about an A. We'll leave it at that.
Well, if you want to go that route, it would be more of a B, but
I know. I was just being.
He wants it to be right behind Wind Waker, so that's where his vote stands. What do you guys think?
I'm a little indifferent to this one. I love Twilight Princess, so like any criticisms I have in my grade on this, don't let it be like a thoughtful impact that I don't compare it as well as the other games. But I'm actually gonna put this one at a B tier because there are aspects about this one that I felt were like not as strong as the earlier titles that came before it. We talk about Ocarina and setting a bar. I don't feel that Twilight met that bar as far as the gameplay aspects of it went. A lot of the enemy types that were
There is a reason why Ocarina is the only one we have in S tier so far.
right. A lot of the enemy types felt really kind of like lazy, if I'm being honest. Like especially towards the end game, where everything just feels like you're fighting a clay knight. And again, even though, like you said, like Zant, is built up to be this boss, it felt very cop out to be like, actually, it's gonna be Ganon. It's just like, All right, but at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Like, we've done this fight a million times over from the beginning of Zelda to now. Even though you have the ability to throw them in at the end of the game, it felt very much like it was underwhelming because it wasn't built up towards being it. It was just like, all right, well, flash ending, guess what? This is what we're doing. And I feel like it was poorly implemented as far as the entire length of the gameplay goes. Midna, I do appreciate her as a comedic value, but as far as being like a Navi figure in this game, she didn't offer as much as I feel. But as far as like the graphical style, the ability to get certain like upgrades towards your already existing abilities and expanding upon Hyrule as a whole and having like essentially the Dark World aspect from Link from the Past, or Link to the Past, sorry. It's still a very comprehensive game, and it definitely stands the test of time as far as Zeldas go. But comparing it to its predecessors is hard to say like that I could even compare them in a tier list. I definitely feel like this one drops its value by a margin.
That's the whole problem we're having right now doing this. Is that we're basing these games based on when we played them and when we loved them. And when you played the game back in 2010, you have a more of a love for it. Now it's like a nostalgia.
Yeah.
So like a game like if you played Majora's Mask in 2010 and that was your second Zelda game ever, yeah, you're gonna love it more. But at the end of the day, where would you put this, mate?
Like I said, I think it sits at a B tier. Not like a poor B tier, but like I would say it's like B plus, just behind a like an A minus. Like it's there, but if I was gonna choose a Zelda to play, there are ones that came out before it I would rather play, and there are ones that came out after it I would rather play. So
that wasn't the one with the motion controls, right?
No.
It did have motion.
Well, yeah, it did, but yeah.
It did.
You probably could have used motion controls for it, but when it was a Wii launch title at the same time as coming out of the GameCube.
I didn't play that version of it, though. I only played the GameCube version, which I agree with Tunable is the superior version to play it.
It 100% is the superior one.
And that's why the Wii version costs $20 nowadays, and the GameCube's $150.
All right, so did we get your take on it yet, Grease?
Yeah, I started it off. I had to put in A tier.
A. So you're an A. Where are you at?
A for me.
I'm at S.
Cole gave it an S. You guys both give it an A.
A lot of it does deserve an A as well, but I'm an S.
I think
averages again.
It averages to A tier.
Let's make a community decision right now. Is it better than Wind Waker?
No.
Okay. Is it better than Majora's Mask?
Yes.
I gotta say yes on that one.
All right.
Absolutely.
It goes in between those and the A tier. All right. Next game.
Sorry, wrecked. I'm sorry, dude.
All right. Next game. The next game is going to be. Should we mix it up and go with Breath of the Wild? Let's go with Breath of the Wild. Let's talk about Breath of the Wild.
We can do that.
I guess I'll go first because everybody else is. Breath of the Wild kind of surprised me upon release because I was expecting it to be less than it was. When they like announced that it was going to be an open world game and you had these options to kind of visit the temples as you wish, it wasn't going to be a straight linear passage. I was kind of indifferent to it at first because I was so used to that series and that style of going through Zelda games. But having those options available did give it a lot more playthrough, and it gave it such a longevity because of how much there was to do in the game. The
game changing.
Again, the ability to cook, all of the options for weapons, all of the options for armor, all of the options for going through travel. Again, there was a lot that game had done right, and it's hard to even kind of compare it to any of its leading games up to it. It was such an overhaul of a Zelda game that it didn't quite feel like a Zelda game anymore, but not in a bad way. It really felt like they were doing a great service by trying to build upon what they had already known. It wasn't like they were like, okay, well, we have something that works, we're going to only stick to this. They did go ahead and get their feet wet in a world that they did not know if this is going to work. The development team that went behind it and the way that they built that game up, it really did them a favor by having so many people be able to go through the tech demos and give out plot ideas and things that they didn't like and like about it, because it ended up making the game work in a way that was exponentially going to grow over time. The fan base clearly agrees because it's one of the top selling Zeldas that's ever come out, and just having so much to do in the game outside of just the main quest makes it work and shine in a way that I don't think that any of the other Zeldas up until Tears can compare to, but in a way that definitely is.
We'll get into Tears in a bit.
Yeah, it's got its own thing. I would say that I want to say S tier, but I'm gonna give it an A. I am gonna give it an A just because of, again, there are other titles that I would play before it and after that I feel better.
Okay, fair. Who would like to go next? Anyone, take the mic. Go ahead.
I'll go in. I'll throw in. After hearing, while listening to Mate actually give his explanations, I mean,
he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. 100%. Everything that Mate has said stands true 100%. And the durability was definitely that's a lot of people don't like it. It's a pain. It is a pain.
It's manageable though. It's manageable.
Yes, it's manageable. It is a pain but I understand why they did that, to to force you to use all the other weapons, to where you're not just like, I like this, I'm only going to use this. I mean, if you wanted to, you could, but you had to stock yourself up.
They made it so that you couldn't fucking, just find one sword and be like, oh, this is a sword for the rest of the game.
Yeah. I commend them for doing that, though especially early game,
it seemed really quick.
Yes. It got very, very annoying very quickly. I liked the shrine system. The shrines and going that route and just getting the orbs to then give yourself either your hearts or the stamina, and Mate didn't even touch upon the ability to climb. Giving you the ability to climb and giving you more options of
being able to move around the map. Just being able to move around the map.
The freedom is, I mean, that was a game changer right there. Where walk down this path, or if you're skilled enough, you can climb this cliff. You choose how you want to go about it. Awesome. But I agree with Mate where I'm putting this at the very top of A tier.
Very top of 8. So better than Wind Waker?
Better than Wind Waker. Okay. Yes. And I will get into why I'm just giving it A tier later. But it's just one of those things where it's great. It's great, but
I'm loving this, guys.
It's great, but I feel like Tears did it better.
All right. Toon, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it's going to be an A tier.
A tier?
Yeah.
Man, a lot
But-
more A tiers for Breath of the Wild than I thought we were gonna get.
Well, look, see the main reason it's getting A tier for me is Divine Beast. I thought they were the stupidest damn thing in a Zelda game ever made.
You're absolutely
They're
correct.
so dumb. But
They
the
probably
whole
missed
rest
the
of the
call.
game was great. Loved it. It was perfect, beautiful. I didn't really the weapon thing pissed me off at first, but then once I got used to it, it didn't really bother me anymore. And this is Divine Beast. It would get an S if Divine Beast were actual dungeons instead of these. Yeah,
I'm
not
gonna-
even gonna go there.
I'm actually gonna agree with Toon on this one. I feel the same way about it. The game was game changing. Like the open world. It was the first Zelda game that ever was that immersive that you could, travel and kind of make your own adventure, and it wasn't, linear in any way. But there was no dungeons, and the divine beasts suck.
They really do.
So, based on that, I didn't think we were all going to give it an A. I thought I was going to give it an A, and I thought at least a couple of you would give it an S. But apparently, we're all giving it an A. We're going to have to decide where it sits in the A tier. But I'm giving it an A. What do you think?
Okay, so I'm actually with you all and give it an A. High A is all good on that one. The other thing, like you guys said, there wasn't really much dungeons on it. The shrines felt more dungeon-esque than the Divine Beasts. The fact that the game starts off by holding your hand, saying, "Well, yeah, you got to go here, but you got to pick it up and all that." The second you get out of the basic tutorial area, is when the stuff can get hard for you. Right? The game's not going to hold your hand. It's you got to figure it out. Figure out where you're going, what you're doing, everything else. The weapons stuff, I'll agree, is a pain in is a major pain on it until you can get the better weapons. I know when I was playing it, that's the biggest part. There was that one side quest in the island, and I forget the name off the top of my head, in the southeast area of Hyrule, where you can have all the best weapons in the game, but the second you get there, you're starting from scratch.
Yeah, I know it. I know what island you're Evertide Island, or isn't that what it's called? Evertide.
Something like that, yeah. I think that island was actually pulled almost directly out of Wind Waker.
Mm-hmm. I think it was.
It was literally just a challenge island.
Yeah.
But
Because you'd go there, a quest would start, and it was literally just that whole island was a quest.
Yep. But I also like the fact that it did combine some of the other Zelda games, like some of the lore. If you actually read some of the templates on it, it did mention Ocarina of Time as one of them. And there's a lot of other Zelda games. I think every Zelda game that came before it does have some mention in this as well, in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, they did pay.
yeah.
They did pay homage to other Zelda games. 100%.
You could actually-
I can't remember what it. I do remember finding a Link to the Past Easter egg. I can't remember what it was. I'm gonna have to look that up, and I will let you guys know on the next podcast. But holy shit, I do remember finding that. I just can't remember what it was or where it was. I haven't played Breath of the Wild in.
Was it on one of the mountains?
It might have been. I
I
can't
think it was
remember.
on one of the mountains, like near one of the peaks. I know that they had a Skyward Sword. There were actually a couple of locations that were pulled out of Skyward Sword. That actually the
Yeah,
Fountain of Courage.
yeah.
It was actually
Yep.
like the pulled directly out of Skyward Sword, where the goddess sword was actually placed.
They paid homage to a lot of the older Zelda
Twilight
games.
Princess as well.
So overall, guys, we all agree it's A tier.
Hmm.
Is it better than Wind Waker?
I agree. It's better than Wind Waker.
So it's top tier A tier. We're putting it above everything in A tier.
I would agree.
I mean, I disagree with that, but everybody else don't. So yeah. Cool.
I'm sorry.
One other thing I could mention on this too.
I'm
thing I could
sorry,
mention
dude.
You actually face off against Calamity Ganon. He's like a freaking joke. You face off against all the other ones that could freaking whoop your ass, and then you get off the final boss. Like, yeah, it's a joke.
It was a joke.
Yeah.
Made
All
that
right.
point.
All right, next, Skyward Sword. I'll go first. I stopped playing this game immediately because of the motion controls. I don't like it. Fuck this game. D tier.
All right, I'll go next. I'm gonna. Can I get it below D?
No, it just goes down to D.
You only give us a D.
Dude, all right. So I've finished it because I've beat every Zelda game ever made, and I had to keep my streak going. I forced myself to play that game. The storyline is good though because it shows the beginning of the Master Sword. The storyline is phenomenal because it is the beginning of the Zelda universe. It is literally where it all began, how the Master Sword was created. Storyline was good. It's just the fucking gameplay is the most obnoxious pile of trash ever created on this earth.
It really is.
Yeah.
When you gotta force yourself to beat a game, it's not good. I'm done. D.
All right, 2 Ds. What do you guys think?
I'm gonna go D as well.
Oh my god. We're gonna have a D tier.
Oh shit!
My biggest thing on it is everyone point out the motion controls. I love the story. Okay, Fee's kind of annoying, but that's expected. Like, when you get a helper, you usually get one that's like can be annoying. You got Navi and Ocarina of Time.
Let's be honest. It doesn't matter how good the story is in your game. If the game's not fun to play, fuck that game.
Yeah, I can look up the story online. Like, okay, gotcha.
Also, it does take a bit from Twilight Princess's part where the main boss, the last boss, is not mentioned until literally the end.
Yeah.
And like, while that was all right in some aspect, they didn't really need that. They could have kept that to one game. The motion control sucks because every 3 freaking minutes I'm resetting the goddamn recalibrating every 3 minutes. It actually got to the point where you got pissed off.
He's stuttering. He can't.
This man is so he's more pissed off. He's more pissed off about this game than I am. That's bad.
Like I said, I love the story. I just hated the controls.
The controls were god awful. That's why I never finished the game. It was horrible. What do you think, Grease?
I'm giving it D tier. I mean, I would say the only way that I could see it being up to C tier is because of the story. The story is its only saving grace. The story, and then introducing the Zonai and everything as well, because that's where the Zonai.
That's where that started. That's where that started.
And the stamina system actually had started in Skyward Sword as well. So there were components of Skyward Sword that were used later on.
Yeah.
Those are the only saving graces. But the game mechanics, like you guys have said, if it sucks to play, it doesn't matter how good the story is. It's not enough to make up for it.
Yeah, I ain't gonna play a game. I don't care how you could, write the Titanic and make a game out of it. And the Titanic is one of the most beloved movies of all time. But if that game sucks and the gameplay sucks, I ain't gonna fucking play it.
Funny thing is, there is actually a game. Titanic.
I don't.
Mystery puzzle game.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
You just
Don't give me more content. All right, so I think everybody spoke on this but Mate, and I'm pretty sure Mate's gonna have his own take.
Yeah.
So
I really want to give this a C. Like, I really want to give it a C, but I can't. And again, you've already said it. Like, again, if a gameplay mechanics are hard to work with, and not only do you got to deal with the Wii hardware, which is, again,
Horrible.
terrible in its
Mhm.
own right. If your room isn't lit properly, it's not going to sense the IR coming off the Wiimote. So if you're going
Yeah.
for a stab, you end up doing a slash. And specifically, when you get to those boss fights that require those precise mechanics for certain strikes to be able to move forward, that can be a frustrating aspect of the game in itself, because maybe like you can't move forward because you're playing at night, or because like you can't get through it because it's so precise. It requires that much precision. So if a game's mechanic sucks, it sucks, bottom line. And
Yep.
even as far as
Fair.
the story goes, sure, there are some shining points of it, but I'm not going to say it was better than any
It's-
other Zelda.
It's its only saving grace is the fact
Yep.
that it had an okay story. Other than that, the game is trash.
There
If
are
they-
other cool mechanics again within like flying and falling and stuff that they tried to like introduce to the game, but again, it wasn't like it was going to be this new remarkable thing. Like it was this new traversal option that was like made to be always available. It was always this stagnated point between going from A to B, B to C, and then you get a little flying thing in the middle. It was basically a glorified loading screen, if I'm being honest. And then
Pretty much what
That's
I
how
said.
I felt. That's how I felt about the sailing in Wind Waker.
I was going to
that-
say the sailing in Wind Waker was pretty much a disguised loading screen.
Yeah.
that's why I gave that game the rating I gave. So I think we can all agree that this game is a D tier game.
Yeah.
All right, Skyward Sword D tier. Suck it, Skyward Sword.
Fuck that game.
All right, on to the game that we've all been waiting for. Tears of the Kingdom. I don't care who goes first, because I know what rating this is getting.
if
We all know.
if I may, there was some points that you've made, Grease. You're like, Mate didn't cover this about Breath of the Wild. I saved it specifically for this. You mentioned, again, the climbing and the traversal options. The reason I didn't mention it before in a lot of aspects about the story of that Breath of the Wild is because I feel like they were poorly implemented by comparison to Tears of the Kingdom. Well, Breath of the Wild had you going from zone to zone to do the main storyline. Outside of specifically finishing that dungeon, there was fuck all about that story that pulled you into it. At least with Tears of the Kingdom, going to the
He was-
specific tiers
He's
to
not
get
wrong.
those aspects
He's
and
not
get
wrong.
them, it made that much more enjoyable about going through it. I got so much story all the time. And then on top of that, they improved the durability options by introducing fusing. So then your
Yep.
items didn't fall off all the time. Or they had an increase in power, so it didn't feel like you were consistently underpowered by picking up a stick and being like, well, I guess this is my new weapon because I don't got any others here. At least if you could take a stick and attach a diamond to the top, it did something. So it was a much better game in that respect. I do have a major fault with this game, though.
You just broke tune.
I'm still going to give this game an S tier because it is like one of the best Zeldas that has ever come out. But my major fault with this game, and I know you'll agree with me, Neck, is that the end of every dungeon, or whatever you want to call that in this game, because it's not really a dungeon or a temple in itself, really. But those temples that you go through are piss poor. When you're going through and you just basically do 5 things that are super simple, that's piss poor.
And 2 of them you can cheese.
I actually don't mind that. I actually think that gave it variety. Being able to cheese it was kind of like an Easter egg.
Being able to cheese a whole temple is not fun.
It kind of was, though. It was for me to be able to get the Zonai devices and being able to like rock it up and be like, all right, well, that's how I'm doing it.
I want to have the puzzles and the stuff that Zelda games have been giving me for years on end, and not something I can just cheese.
Cheesy sucks.
But even worse than that is the end of every single dungeon, because the cutscene that they provided you, in comparison to the tiers gave you a very unique cinematic that built up the story over the game. The end of the dungeon was the exact same cinematic, the exact same text, and the exact same function at the end. There was nothing that it provided you that was of substance.
All 4 of them were the same. It was literally just a copy and paste.
Yeah.
So, if we learn anything from that, Nintendo, is please give me something different at the end of it. I don't need to hear the same thing from every hero of time coming through here.
I'm gonna throw this in here. The best part of that whole game was collecting the tiers.
It was.
Easily.
Collecting the tiers was the best thing. And you know why they did the same ending of each dungeon, Wrecked? Because you could do them in any order you wanted. And they didn't know which one you would do, so they had to give you that storyline. But I know it's still lazy, but they just...
They didn't try. That was lazy.
That's beyond lazy. Again, even though you could go in separate directions, that doesn't give me enough reason to think that that's acceptable. Again, if I go to 5 different places and I get the exact same thing at the end of them, that's... I understand. I can go to any one of these at any time, but I should be getting a different reason.
That you lose your immersion in the story and the game at that point.
But the ability to fly and truly fly, the ability to go through the Goron function when you could shoot them and bust open boulders, there was so much about that game that made it work better, that it is better than Breath of the Wild, but that story aspect failed hard on me.
They did a good job with the tiers thing, but I think they could have done better with the rest of the game as far as story-based content went.
Yeah, I can't agree with that.
They could have, made it more immersive to where you were, because even if when you were getting the tiers, there was no set order to get them.
No.
You would literally get them out of order and not have a fucking clue what was going on until you got like the 6th one.
Or I mean, you could. I guess the worst part about that is that you could literally spoil yourself if you got the wrong tier.
Yeah, exactly.
I watched the ending and then watched one in the middle, and I was like,
"The fuck's going on?"
Like you already, it's like, oh well, and I mean, if you actually go through the tiers, they have like you understand how they wanted you to go and do it. But if you're gonna do it that way, then actually kind of make the other ones not available. But if you want to leave it open, have it as just each number of tiers you get.
You just
no
get
matter which one you go. You
just get the next part of the story. You don't just get a random part of the story.
Yes,
look, man,
at least do that.
Pulp Fiction style, all right?
But I'll tell you what, the tiers were the best part of that game.
They were.
Getting those and watching the cinematics, I enjoyed that more than playing the fucking game.
Yeah.
What do you think, Cole?
I just think I definitely with you guys on the S rank. Even though I haven't played much of it, I do say from what I've seen from some videos and everything, everything basically, like, this game does improve upon a lot of the aspects that Breath of the Wild had. It keeps the open concept going.
Yeah. It's definitely better than Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. It's just the story itself. Yeah, it is one thing. Collecting tiers is always going to be fun in that, but I personally think they could have done a bit better in certain aspects of the game, like you guys said.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, so you're giving it an S. What are you giving it, Grease?
I'm giving it an S.
What are you giving it, mate?
Oh, I gave it an S.
All right, so I'm giving it an S. Tunes, what are you giving it?
I'm giving it an S. Just
all right.
What's the tiers?
Here's the big question.
Oh, you motherfucker!
Is it better than Ocarina of Time? This is
That's-
where we
There's going to be a debate right there.
That's tough right there. It really is.
we have to
I'd
talk
say
about
yeah.
it.
I'd say
We do
yeah.
have to talk about it.
I think it is.
I think it is.
I
It's
think
true.
15-year-old me would disagree, but
I don't.
35-year-old me, I think it's better than Ocarina of Time.
I don't.
You don't?
No.
I do.
All right, so we got one I do, one I don't. And if you count me, that's two I do's. What do you think, Grease? Is it better than Ocarina?
I'm still mulling it over in my head, really. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. In terms of criticisms, even looking like going now, like if I go back and play Ocarina of Time and overall experience and how I feel,
That's really what it's about.
I have more issues with Tears than I do with Ocarina.
So it's a no.
Tears is a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy Tears, but overall standpoint,
I'm just trying to figure out where we're gonna put this.
I'm with Mate. I feel like it's up there. I mean, it's neck and neck, but
It's not better.
overall,
It's not better than
overall,
Ocarina.
I still
All right.
will play Ocarina over Tears.
All right. So here we go. Cole.
Let's just put the pressure on. Let's just put the pressure on the guest.
You wanted to be on this podcast.
did.
No, I know.
Yeah. So
Okay.
where do we stand? Is it better than Ocarina of Time?
All right. So Ocarina of Time set the standard for every game, including Tears of the Kingdom. While everyone loves Tears of the Kingdom, if you put Ocarina of Time in today's part, like in today's, if that came out this year as it stands, it probably would go right behind Tears of the Kingdom. However, the nostalgia purposes, a lot of people still love Ocarina of Time. I feel that one still sets the standard, and that Tears of the Kingdom is just behind it, like a very close second.
All right. So Ocarina of Time takes first spot in S tier, guys.
I think we can revisit this one of these days because there's arguments to be made there.
That's where it stands. It goes Ocarina of Time, S tier, and then Tears of the Kingdom. And then in the A tier, we go Breath of the Wild, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and then Majora's Mask. And then we all decided that Skyward Sword's just a piece of shit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really fine with like doing a revisit of this tier list where we kind of just say, hey, play these games again, get a feel for them now, look at it through your eyes and now standpoint.
Yeah,
and reevaluate.
I think that's a lot of it. It's like a lot of it's nostalgia.
Yeah.
And remembering playing it years ago. But I think we can move on. I think we're done with the tier list. That's our tier list, guys. If you enjoy the tier list, if you want to see us do another tier list, we will be doing more tier lists in the future. We'll be doing more play it or throw it aways. Pick our console. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. It's very important. It helps us out tremendously.